Welcome to Lakeisha's Beautyland. I am Lakeisha R. Collins, founder of Beautiful Me Ministries, a Christian organization geared towards empowering women to find healing, wholeness, and healthy self-esteem through Jesus Christ. You can find more information at www.beautifulmeministries.com. So for today's video, as you can tell by the title, the subject is unfathered. And this topic, of course, is inspired by Father's Day, which was just 2 days ago. And I wanted to make this video after Father's Day because I did not want to put a damper on the importance or the celebratory moments that Father's Day should be for those of us who have amazing fathers, amazing father figures, who have amazing husbands, who are father figures, who co-parent with men who are great fathers. Did not want to put any kind of cloud over that or cause any kind of distraction from the day that our amazing fathers so greatly deserve. But I wanted to talk from the subject of unfathered because I, like 1 in 3 women, was an unfathered daughter. I'll share a little bit of my story, and if you've been following me for any number of years through my social media sites or my blog or the times that I wrote for Empowering Everyday Women magazine, then you know a little bit of my story. I grew up without a father, never met him, never saw him, never knew anything about him. I think I was probably around maybe 5 or 6 when I realized that I did not have a father. I think at the time my mom was married to my sister's dad, but um, I knew, I don't know if anyone told me that he wasn't my real dad, but I don't know. I just knew that he wasn't my dad. But anyway, I ended up being raised by my grandmother. And I think it was probably around 6 years old. Because around 6 years old is when I remember like forming friendships and really remembering like memories and stuff like that. So I guess around 6, I realized that I did not have a dad. And as a young kid, of course, you know, you don't understand why you see your other friends with dads or, you know, male figures, and you have none. I literally had no male presence in my life. And the male presence that I did have was very toxic and unhealthy. But that's a conversation for another day. But I was an unfathered daughter. And it affected me greatly. It affected me very greatly. It affected me deeply. It affected my self-esteem. It affected the way I viewed myself. It affected the ways I interacted with males. It affected my value of myself. Because as an unfathered daughter, when you don't have answers as to why your father was answered, why your when you don't have the answers as to why your father was absent, you create your own story. You create your own narrative, and 9 times out of 10, that narrative is going to tell you that you are the reason that your father was not there. Either you just weren't good enough for him to stay around. You weren't lovable enough for him to stay around, or you know, you weren't cute enough, or you just wasn't good enough for your own father, the very person who helped to create you. You were not for some reason good enough for him to stay around. And when you don't have, you know, answers as to why he was absent, the narrative that you create becomes your identity, and you begin to identify yourself as the voice inside of you that is telling you all these crazy reasons why your dad wasn't around. And so I just want to talk about what does unfathered even mean? Unfathered is simply having no known or acknowledged father. There are many ways that a daughter can be unfathered. She can have a father who is physically present but emotionally absent. She could have had a father present, but then divorce or a breakup between the mother and the father caused him to leave and not come back. She could be unfathered due to a dad passing away due to death at a very young age, or she can be unfathered by simply never having a father present at all in her life. But I think even even though the ways that we become unfathered are different, many of the effects of being unfathered are the same. And one of the issues, I call them daddy issues. One of the daddy issues that is a result of an absent father or being unfathered is rejection. That is the number one issue that unfathered daughters deal with, is rejection, because you feel like your father rejected you. His absence is exactly what that feels like: rejection, not being wanted, not being loved, not being accepted, not being, embraced by your father. Rejection stings, and it stings even more when that rejection comes from your own father. Another daddy issue that an unfathered daughter deals with is abandonment. You feel forgotten by your father. You feel disregarded by your father. You feel left alone by your father. You feel like he just completely walked away from you, and that feeling of abandonment makes you feel like you are not worthy, that you, again, are not good enough for him to want to have stayed around. Um, Another daddy issue that unfathered daughters deal with is anger. You are angry at your father for walking away from the responsibility of you. You are angry at your father for leaving you to walk through life without his presence, when a father's presence is so important to a daughter, because a father's a girl's experience, or lack thereof, with her father is the first experience that she has with a man. And so every relationship from her father's relationship that she has with any male going forward is going to be reflective of the relationship, or lack thereof, that she had with her father. And so if her experience of her father is that he is absent, he is just not there, he walked away, um, then for one, she doesn't even know how to interact with a man. She doesn't even know how to talk to a man. She doesn't know how to have a conversation with a man. She doesn't know how a man is supposed to talk to her, is supposed to treat her. She has no blueprint of male relationship. And so what happens as a result of that, of her first experience of a man being an absent father, what happens is, not everyone, but most unfathered daughters go along this path of unhealthy relationships with men, because they don't have a blueprint. They were not shown how to converse with a man, how to be vulnerable with a man, how to be open with a man, how what to expect from a man. She doesn't know, and so she is just trying to figure it out as she goes along, and she ends up dating men who are just like her father: absent, abandon her, make her feel unworthy, make her feel unloved, make her feel invaluable, unvalued. Um, um, so that's another anger. So you're angry. You have that anger built up inside of your father, because you feel like, how could he? How could he walk away from me? How could he leave my mother to struggle to raise me? How could he just not care about my well-being? How could he just go on with his life like I did not exist? How could he put me in a position where now I don't even know what it's like to be loved by a man? How could he leave me, and then I fall prey to victimizers in the name of love, because I'm looking for someone to love me, and so I become a victim to men who prey upon unfathered daughters? How could he? How could he put me in the position where I feel less than? I feel like I'm not worthy. I feel like I'm unlovable. How could he put me in a position where I feel weak when it comes to even being around me? Like, how could he? There's so much anger that you hold within yourself, because you feel like, had your father been present, had he been present in your life and been the father that you needed him to be, then you would have avoided going through so many of the unfortunate situations that you have gone through in your life. That anger, it's a daddy issue. Another issue that father daughters deal with is self-blame. Because again, when you don't know the story, when you don't know why your father wasn't there, and your inner voice gives you a story, it's always going to point back to you. And so you start to blame yourself for your father's absence. And then you start to blame, and it becomes a pattern. It becomes a pathology of behavior, where anytime something goes wrong in your life, or anytime something doesn't work out in your favor, or you don't get the promotion, or the relationship fails, or just something just doesn't go right, it's you blame yourself. You put the blame on yourself for every single thing that goes wrong in your life. Every time somebody walks away from you, you blame yourself. It's me. It's because I'm not this and I'm not that. And it's, again, directly related to being unfathered. Another daddy issue that unfathered daughters deal with is self mutilation. Now, when you think about mutilation, most people are going to think about actual physical harm, like maybe like cutting or um, just doing something to yourself to inflict physical pain. But a lot of times, unfathered daughters self mutilate through addictions, whether that's sex addictions, drug addictions, food addictions. We self mutilate by um, through promiscuity. We self mutilate by allowing ourselves to be in situations that cause us harm. And then there's a deep part inside of us that will feel like, well, this is as good as I deserve because I wasn't even good enough for my daddy to stick around. So, you know, it's okay. This is okay. This is normal for me. It's okay for me. Um, and it's all because there is a void inside of an unfathered daughter that is the size of her father. And so, in an effort to try to fill that void, an unfathered daughter will sometimes turn to a cycle of unhealthy relationships. Again, addictions, just an overindulgence in things that are not beneficial to your well-being, and overindulgence in things that hurt you emotionally, things that hurt you physically, things that affect your health, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional health. We overindulge in things trying to fill that hole on the inside of us that only we feel like our actual father can fill. So that's why I say it's a hole the size of your father, because the void was there because of his absence. And so then unfathered daughters often are always going through their life just seeking validation, seeking, wanting to be accepted. Because when you are rejected by your very own father, to try to fill that void, you go above and beyond in trying to be accepted by others, or to be validated by others. So you become a people pleaser. Um, you do more than you should, trying to seek attention or trying to just have somebody to want you. You crave that. You crave that validation. You crave that embrace. You crave that attention. You crave that love that you should have gotten from your father. Um, and then there are another daddy issue is an identity issue, because you feel like your father's absence, um, your father's absence is linked to a huge part of you not knowing who you are. Um, you feel like you don't fully know yourself because a huge part of who you are is missing. And you feel like your father holds up key to the other half of who you are. And because of his absence, you can't find that missing piece of your identity. And so you go through your life just really just confused about who you are as a person, who you are as an individual, even in your personality, in your in your in your dealings with people. You feel lost because you feel like your father holds the other part of who you are, and you feel like you can't be completely whole unless or until he becomes a part of your life. um but there are things that you must realize, and the first thing that you must realize as an unfathered daughter is that your father's absence, however it came about, had absolutely nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing to do with you, not in the least bit. Your father's absence is not your fault. You cannot take responsibility for another person's actions. It had nothing to do with you. For whatever reason, your father was absent, that's all on him. All on him. 100% on him. Um, I know that in my situation with not growing up with a father, I experienced all of this stuff that I just previously listed. I experienced all of that. My daddy issues ran very, very deep. And I absolutely felt like I was responsible for him not being a part of my life. Like, I felt like for whatever reason, it was my fault that he didn't stick around, or he never looked for me, or he never tried to find me. I remember being 18, getting ready to graduate from high school, and I think it was the first time that I was like, okay, I really want to try to find my dad, because there were, from the time that I was about 6 years old, I cannot remember a year that passed where I did not long to know my father. Um, and that hole just would never be filled. But I remember being 18 years old, like when the internet was like just starting to pop, and the white pages was was popular online, and so I googled because I knew his name. The only thing I knew was his name. I think that he was in the military and that his last known place of residence was in Louisiana. So I took to the white pages and I typed in his name and I typed in Louisiana, and I found every name that matched his in Louisiana, and I wrote a letter and I mailed it. It had to be about 20 something letters that I wrote, just trying to find my dad, because I just felt like a huge part of me was missing. And I felt like I could not be completely myself or completely whole until or unless I found him. And if I did not find him, then I would never be whole. Unfortunately, all those letters that I mailed out did not yield any results. And so I continued to go through life with all of these daddy issues, still um, looking for that love, looking for that acceptance, looking for that validation, just wanting to be wanted. Um, Lots of unhealthy relationships. I remember looking for my father, thought that I had found a father in a father figure, and pretty much just set myself up to be abused in the name of a godfather. And that wasn't the first experience of just wanting to find my father in someone and being taken advantage of because of it. So daddy issues run so deep. Um, but you have to know that you are not the reason. That was one of the things that I had to come to terms with once I got into adulthood, like really, really into adulthood, and really tried to start working on becoming healed from the issues that had me bound and issues that just kept me in this vicious cycle of self-harm, self-depreciation. Um, one of the biggest issues, of course, was my daddy issue, was being an unfathered daughter. And so one of the things that I had to come to terms with in towards my healing was that my father's absence just was not my fault. His decision, his choice, his circumstances, or whatever that caused him to not be a part of my life, it didn't have anything to do with me. It just didn't. And I had to get to the place where I saw him through his humanness and not through the lens of what I wanted him to be. And that's one of the things that really freed me, because I had been looking at him through what I wanted him to be and only seeing how he was not that thing for me, but not understanding or acknowledging that, hey, at the end of the day, regardless of what I wanted him to be for me, he's just a human being. He's a human being with his own challenges, with his own issues, with his own demons, with his own struggles, and it was his humanness that kept him from being a father to me, and that didn't have anything to do with me. Um, Another thing is that I had to realize that, again, his absence had never been about me. It wasn't because I wasn't good enough. It wasn't because I wasn't cute enough. It wasn't because I was unlovable. It wasn't because I was an unwanted person. Like, none of that. All of that stuff that my inner voice, the narrative that my inner voice gave me, I had to dispel all of that, because you can't carry the weight or the responsibilities of other people's choices. Regardless of how bad you wanted them to be something else, you can't hold the weight of them not being what you wanted them to be. And that's one of the things that was said in Unfathered Daughter Free, is understanding that at the end of the day, it was your father's humanness that kept him from being present or just being what you needed him to be. It could have stemmed from his own childhood. Maybe he didn't have a father. Maybe his father didn't stick around. Or maybe he had a father who was present but was toxic, and he didn't know how to deal with that. And so he didn't know how to be a father. So it's just so many factors onto why a person does the things that they do. And it's never about you. Even though their actions hurt you or their actions affect you, their decisions are never about you. Statistically, it shows that unfathered daughters are more prone to things like depression, low self-esteem, living beneath their potential, all that good stuff. And I mean, I definitely experienced all of that, absolutely experienced all of that. But one thing that I do want you to know, I want unfathered daughters to know, is that you can live, you can grow, you can thrive, you can be everything that you want to be in life. You can have love, you can have healthy relationships, you all of that. You can have all of that, you can be all of that, because none of that is connected to your father. Like, your father does not hold the key to your wholeness. Your father does not hold the key to your happiness. Your father does not hold, your natural father does not hold the key to your healing. Your natural father just does not hold the key to the totality of the success in your life. He doesn't. He only holds that when you give him that. And so I hope that by the end of this video, unfathered daughters will take back the key to their life from their absent father. You're giving him too much power over your life when you're the only one who should hold that power. And so on my path to healing, I had to come to terms with the fact that I may never know my father. I may never, ever, ever know him. I may never, ever understand why he left, never came back, I had to come to grips with that. And so, of course, I had to begin to, because I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, so I had to begin to cling to my Heavenly Father. And one of my favorite scriptures to cling to during my time of healing from the hole that was my father was Psalm 27:10, that says, my father and my mother forsake me, but the Lord will take me in. And so what that scripture meant to me was that although I may have been unfathered by my natural father, I had a heavenly father who was there to take me in as his daughter, to father me in the ways that my natural father could not and did not. And so, God is close to the brokenhearted. And my heart was broken as a result of my father's absence, but allowing myself to be taken in and adopted by my heavenly father, it's his love and his protection and his kindness and his compassion and his presence began to fill that hole that was in my heart for my father, for my natural father. So one thing that I want unfathered daughters to know, besides knowing that your father's absence was not your fault, unfathered daughters need to know that there is nothing missing, there's nothing lacking, and there's nothing broken in your life because of your father's absence. You're not missing a piece of who you are. You're not missing anything from your identity, anything from your being. You're not missing any of that because you are created whole in Christ alone. Yes, it absolutely hurts to not have your father present. It hurts. Yes, it hurts. It's a deep, deep pain that took me years to heal from. Years into my 30s to heal from. But I got to the place where I had to, because for me, I started to use daddy issues as an excuse for bad behavior, or as an excuse for bad habits, as an excuse for why I did things that weren't good for me. I linked all of it to daddy issues. But there comes a point in everyone's life, in every unfathered daughter's life, there comes a point where you are going to have to take responsibility for yourself. Daddy issues can no longer be used as an excuse to continue on a downward spiral or continue in bad habits. At some point, you're gonna have to lay that daddy issue excuse down and take a hard look at yourself and see that your father's absence, as great as a hurt that it may have been or may still be, it is not the puppeteer driving you to do the things that you do that are not good for you. So I had to accept responsibility for some of my own actions, and I had to just stop giving my father that kind of control over my life. Why was I giving this person that was absent the power to steer my choices, the power to steer my emotions, the power to steer my decisions? Like, why was I even giving him that kind of power? He didn't even deserve that kind of position in my mind. So I had to pull that power from my absent father and take it upon myself and take a hard look at myself and say, no, I'm not about to let anybody's absence make me continue to keep me angry, bitter, continue to help push me into addictions, into bad behavior, into bad choices, into depression, into emotional instability. No, I couldn't continue to let him have that kind of power. I am my responsibility. And my father's presence or his absence just could not hold that type of power. At the end of the day, I had to forgive my father. I used to hate when Father's Day rolled around. I hated Father's Day. Hated Father's Day. Even after I had children, and my children have an amazing father, always been present. My now husband has always been present, always been caring, always been loving father. They've always had an amazing dad. But even after having children and seeing a father up close and personal, I still hated Father's Day. And it kept me from fully celebrating the father that my children had. because I was still holding on to that bitterness of not having my own father and just hating Father's Day so much that I was robbing an amazing father from the honor and the recognition that he deserved. And so I guess about 7 years ago, maybe, it was like, my husband doesn't deserve, he doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve to miss out on, celebrations because of my father's absence. I was allowing my father's absence to interfere with celebrating my children's amazing father. And so I really had to get to the point where it was like, okay, I need to forgive this man. I need to forgive him. Not knowing anything, no whys, no answers, no nothing. I decided I'm releasing him. I'm releasing this pain. I'm releasing this bitterness. I'm releasing these daddy issues. I can't hold it anymore. I can't, because it was just affecting my life too much. And so I forgave him. I forgave him. I forgave him, and I let that hurt go. I let it go because he wasn't there. I'm 30 some years old now. At that point, I'm like 32, 33 years old. At that point, he had been absent all 30 something of those years. Nothing was going to change. So it was either continue to hold on to that unforgiveness or forgive him and just move on with my life. And so that's what I did. I released that hurt because daddy was gone and he had been gone for 30 some years. And listen, just let that hurt go, sis. Um, and I did that. I let that hurt go. I really, really did. And I became better because of it. I really did. And I will never forget. Um, it was Father's Day 2014. And I posted on social media a happy Father's Day to my father. I had never seen him a day in my life, but that was the first time I decided that I was just going to do things differently. And I wished him a happy Father's Day. I I did. And I don't know, it was freeing for me. And I know that every unfathered daughter's story doesn't end the way mine has. 2014, December of 2014, I just had my daughter. She was just a couple weeks old. And that that longing for my dad, it never completely disappeared. Like, it would resurface every so often. It would resurface, and I would begin to wonder, what he's like. I wonder if I could find him. So anyway, right after having my daughter, that longing came back. And so my mom had given me a few stories, not a few stories, but like minimal information. Like, I knew that she had met him through a mutual friend of theirs, and myself and the mutual friend's daughter kind of like grew up together. So every now and then I would ask her, like, hey, do you think your parents know anything about my dad? And she would always be like, I don't know, you don't know. So anyway, it's about a week or two after giving birth to my daughter that longing came up. I don't even remember becoming Facebook friends with this mutual friend of my mom and my dad's. But I logged onto Facebook and I saw her. And I was like, I don't remember becoming Facebook friends with her. But anyway, on a whim, I inboxed her and um, I said something to the effect, you may not know anything, but I figured it was worth a try. Is there anything that you can tell me about my dad? She inboxed me back within like 10 minutes. And she's like, my husband actually talked to your dad just the other day. I can get his number for you. When I saw that message on my phone, I froze. I literally froze. My heart was beating like it felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. I could not believe that in a matter of 10 minutes, something that I had been searching for 30 plus years was right in front of me. Like, I couldn't believe it. It felt like an out of body experience. But she said, hold on, I'm going to ask my husband for his number when he gets in from work, and I'll send it to you. Lo and behold, you know what? I did not get my hopes up. I'm not going to lie. I did not get my hopes up just because I had run into so many dead ends already trying to find my dad. I really didn't get my hopes up. A few hours later, I got an inbox message, and the message read, this is your father's number. I wish you the best. And I stared at my phone, and I stared at my phone, and I stared at my phone, and I was like, oh my God, this cannot be real. Like, this cannot be real. Is this really my father's phone number? And so there was a part of me that wanted to call right away. But then there was a part of me that was like, what if I call and he don't want to talk to me? What if I call and he don't answer the phone? And so I was wrestling with excitement and apprehension at the same time. So I slept on it. I slept on it for a day. I did. I prayed about it and I was like, Lord, I don't want this heartbreak, because I had gotten to a place where I was healed from those daddy issues. I had forgiven him and I was okay with him being absent. And so I didn't want to open this door and then it be slammed in my face. And so I prayed about it and I was like, Lord, I don't want this heartbreak. So if I should call this number, like, let it lead to an open door. And I wasn't even sure. I didn't know what I would say. I didn't know. I did not know. But I worked up my nerves. I would dial the number and then I put the phone down. Then I dial the number and I put the phone down. So I did that like 10 times, I know. But then I dialed the number. I hit the call button and a couple rings. A man's voice answers and he says, "Hello, daughter." He's like, "Hello, daughter." And like in that moment, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know whether to cry. I didn't know whether to smile. I didn't know whether to cuss him out. But he said, "Hello, daughter." And it took me a few moments, but I was like, "Hi." And he was like, "Hi, Lakeisha." And he's like, "Hello, Lakeisha Shante." Like, he called my whole name. And it, it was, I felt like a little girl. I felt like a little girl running into her daddy's arms for the very first time. And like, I didn't feel any anger. I didn't feel any animosity. I didn't feel like he needed to explain himself. It was an instant connection. It was an instant connection. And I remember just the first few times of us talking, he just kept apologizing. He kept explaining himself. It was a lot. It was a lot. But I will say, um, after our first few conversations, I did understand why he was absent. And I understood in those moments that his absence is what was best for me. Because had he been present in my life, um, it wouldn't have been good. It just wouldn't have been good. I won't tell his story. Maybe I can get him to tell his story, and I can share it here on my on and I can share it. But had he been present in my life, it wouldn't have been good. It just wouldn't have been good. He was into drugs, and you already know how that goes. But to the unfathered daughter, I want you to know that you are beautiful, you are valuable, you are worthy, you are whole. Your natural father you may feel rejected by your natural father, but we have an Abba Father, a daddy God who loves you, who wants you, who cares about you, who is always present, never leaves you, never abandons you, always looks out for you, always takes care of you, always prefers you. He's always there. He's there to wipe your tears. He's there when you fall in love. He's there when your heart is broken. He's there when you have your first child. He's there to walk you down the aisle. He's there every milestone, every low peak, every accomplishment, every basketball game, every college graduation, every job promotion, in your lowest points. Like, he's the father who is always, always, always there. And his presence makes up for your father's absence. And so I want you to be healed. I want you to be whole, and I want you to be happy. And I don't want you to continue to give your father's absence the control or the power over your healing, over your wholeness, over your worth, over your happiness, over your joy, over your peace, over your decisions, over your relationships. Um, Unfathered daughters are whole daughters. Unfathered daughters are happy daughters. Unfathered daughters are healed daughters. Unfathered daughters are successful daughters. Your father's absence cannot take anything away from your life. God made you whole from the foundations of the earth. And he did not factor your father's presence or his absence into his creation of you or into his purpose for your life. So your father's absence, or your success, your overall success and joys and happiness in life, is not contingent upon your father's presence or his absence. Um, so I hope that you would just take back your power today. Forgive your father, forgive yourself, be happy, be healthy, be whole, be healed. Thanks for watching. Now do me a favor. Like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, leave me a comment, and share. See you next time.